What's the biggest lesson life has taught you so far? Think about this. How much of who you are is truly you, and how much has been shaped by outside forces? Like what others expect, how you were raised, or the silent pressures of society. Ever catch yourself feeling like you're just going through the motions, following a script written by someone else? That script could come from your childhood, your culture, or even fears you don't talk about out loud. Today, we're diving into one of Carl Jung's most powerful ideas, the belief that real life only begins when you finally connect with your true self. But what does that really mean? Is it just about understanding yourself better, or is it something deeper, something that changes everything? Stick with me, because once we pull back the curtain on what shapes your sense of identity, you'll start to understand why so many people go their whole lives without ever truly finding themselves, and what you can do to break that cycle. What we'll get to in the end is a realization that can completely change how you see yourself and the world around you. Carl Gustav Jung wasn't just any psychologist. He went far beyond the surface-level thinking of his time. While others focused on fitting into the norms of society, Jung believed that mental health meant becoming your most honest, genuine self, a path he called individuation. The thing is, most people never take that path. They stay locked into versions of themselves built by outside expectations. They never pause to ask, is this really who I am? Instead, they chase approval, success, or belonging. But deep down, something always feels off. A quiet discomfort, a lingering sense that something important is missing. Jung believed that true living starts when we stop running from who we are. But before we can get to that freedom, we need to understand what holds us back. From day one, we're shaped by the world around us. We're given names, roles, and rules, taught what's okay and what isn't. These lessons are so woven into our lives that we barely notice them. We adjust, we behave, and bit by bit, we silence the parts of ourselves that don't fit the mold. Think back to when you were a kid. Ever share a dream or feeling only to be told to get real, toughen up, or stop being dramatic? Maybe you started hiding those parts of you, shoving them down to avoid judgment. And in doing so, you began building what Jung called the persona, the version of yourself that the world sees. That mask helps you get along in society, sure, but the more you cling to it, the more distant you become from who you really are. You start to believe the mask is you, forgetting there's a whole other part of you that's been pushed into the background. Now let's talk about the shadow, the flip side of that mask. If the persona is the public face, the shadow is everything we hide. It holds our fears, our raw emotions, the desires we've been told are wrong, and even some of our greatest strengths that we've never dared to claim. And the shadow doesn't just sit there quietly. It shows up in our choices, our reactions, and the way we see others. Ever find yourself seriously annoyed by someone, but you're not sure why? Or triggered by something small that sends your emotions spiraling? Jung believed those moments often reveal parts of ourselves we're refusing to face. When we judge someone harshly, it might be because they remind us of something in us we've buried. But here's the powerful twist. Those hidden parts aren't your enemy. They're the missing pieces you need to feel whole. Jung's biggest revelation was this: healing isn't about destroying the shadow. It's about facing it, accepting it, and bringing it into the light. When you look inward with honesty, when you stop pretending and start integrating the parts you've ignored, that's when the real transformation begins. When you start embracing who you really are, you tap into a deep well of power, truth, and freedom. That's the point where real transformation begins. Are you ready to face the truth about yourself? Ready to let go of the illusions that have been shaping your life? Because what comes next might shake up everything you thought you knew. But it could also lead you to a life that feels genuinely yours. A lot of people move through life thinking they already know themselves. They identify with their name, job, background, or the things they've been through. But what if I told you that who you think you are is only the tip of the iceberg? That your current sense of self is only a sliver of a much richer and more complex inner world? Carl Jung believed every person carries within them a deep, hidden inner space filled with old memories, buried emotions, unspoken dreams, and unrealized strengths. And the journey of finding yourself isn't about creating a brand new identity. It's about uncovering what's already there, hidden beneath layers you've long forgotten. Take a second to reflect. Have you ever felt a strong, almost aching sense that there's something more out there for you? Like there's a better, fuller version of yourself just waiting to be discovered? That's not just your imagination running wild. It's your unconscious mind nudging you towards something deeper. Jung called this process individuation, the path to becoming whole by bringing all the parts of yourself, both the light and the shadow, into alignment. But to do that, you first have to face those hidden parts. And this is where most people pull away, because it's uncomfortable. It means confronting the sides of yourself you've ignored or denied for years. It means questioning the beliefs you've clung to, facing the fears you've pushed aside, and owning the inner struggles that have shaped you. Just think about how much time we spend avoiding silence. We stay busy with work, scroll endlessly through social media, binge watch shows, all so we don't have to be alone with our thoughts. But this habit of constant distraction, it's not random, it's a shield. A way to avoid the deeper questions about who we really are. Yet no matter how hard we try to outrun them, those inner truths always find a way to surface. They sneak into our lives through anxiety, self-doubt, unhappy relationships, or a nagging feeling that we're just off track. Jung believed the unconscious is always communicating with us. The problem is, we've forgotten how to listen. But when we start paying attention, patterns emerge. We begin to see how our past wounds shape our choices, how repressed parts of us show up in our behavior, and how the things we fear most can carry the greatest lessons. Let's look at something simple but powerful: the fear of rejection. So many people carry this fear, constantly seeking approval, avoiding conflict, and holding back their truth just to feel accepted. But where does this really come from? Is it just about other people's opinions? Or could it trace back to a childhood moment where someone made us feel unworthy, invisible, or not good enough? Jung believed that these fears aren't just emotions, they're fragments of our shadow, the parts of ourselves we haven't fully owned. And until we bring them into the light, they'll keep controlling our lives from the background. But here's the amazing part. When you finally face these hidden pieces of yourself, they lose their grip on you. Picture how it would feel to no longer be afraid of judgment, to speak your truth with confidence, to make choices that come from your heart, not from fear or pressure. That's the essence of individuation. It's not about changing into someone else. It's about becoming fully and unapologetically you. So, how do we begin that process? How do we tap into the unconscious forces that quietly steer our lives? Jung believed in the power of dreams, symbols, and self-reflection. He saw dreams as messages from your deeper self, revealing truths you might not be ready to say out loud. He also pointed to creative expression, art, writing, music, as ways to unlock and integrate the hidden parts of you. But maybe the most important first step is this: awareness. The moment you start asking yourself why you think the way you do, why you react the way you react, that's when the shift begins. When you stop running from discomfort and start leaning into it with curiosity, you're already reclaiming your true self. Because here's the hard truth. Most people live their whole lives disconnected from who they really are. They follow someone else's script, never realizing they could write their own. They quiet their real selves to fit in, never knowing that their biggest power lies in embracing every part of who they are. You don't have to live like that. You have the ability to let go of the false beliefs that have been holding you back, to strip away the fears and conditioning that have limited how deeply you experience life, and to finally step into who you are, fully, boldly, and without apology. And in the next part, we'll dive into something even more fascinating: the hidden archetypes that live inside you. These ancient psychological patterns, buried deep within your mind, can unlock parts of you that you didn't even know were there. What you're about to learn might completely shift the way you understand yourself. If finding your true self were as easy as deciding who you want to be, most people would already be living with clarity and purpose. But the truth is, it's much more layered than that. It's not just about making a choice. It's about looking beneath the surface, discovering what shaped you, and embracing the parts of yourself you've pushed away. It's about weaving everything together into one honest and whole identity. But here's something to really think about. Why do we keep getting pulled toward certain habits, feelings, or fears? Why do we find ourselves stuck in the same old cycles, even when we're trying to grow? Carl Jung had an answer that changed everything. He believed that deep inside every person, there are universal patterns, psychological building blocks that guide the way we think, feel, and act, often without us even realizing it. He called these patterns archetypes. According to Jung, these archetypes come from something called the collective unconscious, a kind of shared inner world passed down through generations of human experience. These inner blueprints influence not only who we are, but also how we relate to others and how we see the world. Think about the characters that show up again and again in stories from all over the world. The brave hero, the wise guide, the dark villain, the innocent child. They show up in myths, fairy tales, religion, novels, and even in our dreams. These aren't just made-up figures. They represent real psychological forces that live within us all. And whether we notice it or not, they're always influencing the way we move through life. Take the hero archetype, for example. That's the part of you that craves purpose, that feels called to do something meaningful. It's the drive to overcome challenges, to grow stronger, and to become your highest self. But this part of you isn't alone. It always brings the shadow with it. The shadow holds the sides of you that you've hidden or denied. Your fears, your flaws, but also your untapped gifts. In every great story, the hero has to face the shadow, usually in the form of a monster, an enemy, or a huge obstacle, before they can evolve. Now think about your own life. Have you ever felt ready to change but couldn't quite move forward? Maybe you had a chance to level up, to become more of who you are, but something inside stopped you. Fear, doubt, or old habits. That's the inner battle between your hero and your shadow. Most people try to fight or bury the shadow, but Jung taught that real growth happens when you face it and learn from it, not when you push it away. Say you deal with self-doubt. Instead of pretending it's not there, Jung would ask you to explore it. Where does it come from? Was it something someone said to you years ago? A failure you never got over? a belief you picked up without questioning. What if that doubt actually contains something useful, like the ability to reflect deeply, or stay humble, or notice things others miss? When you start seeing your inner struggles as messages instead of flaws, everything starts to change. But there's more to archetypes than just the hero and the shadow. Jung also talked about the anima and animus, two powerful forces that exist in everyone. He believed that every man carries a hidden feminine energy, called the anima, and every woman carries a hidden masculine energy, the animus. This has nothing to do with gender in the usual sense. It's about balance within us. The anima represents emotion, intuition, creativity, and a connection to the deeper parts of the self. The animus stands for logic, order, strength, and assertiveness. When these energies are in harmony, we feel whole. But when they're out of sync, we experience conflict and confusion. Take a man who shuts down his anima. He might struggle to express emotion or avoid vulnerability because he sees it as weak. But in doing so, he cuts himself off from some of the most important parts of being human, like deep connection, empathy, and emotional wisdom. A woman who disconnects from her inner animus might find it tough to speak up or take charge of her own life. But when we stop pushing these inner forces away and instead begin to understand and accept them, they can become an incredible source of inner strength. And that brings us to one of Jung's most powerful insights. In order to truly find yourself, you have to accept all of yourself, the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, the parts you know and the parts you've never explored. Individuation isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming whole. But there's one last piece to this puzzle, and it's the most transformative of all. Because the biggest thing standing in the way of discovering who you are isn't just fear, self-doubt, or societal expectations. It goes deeper. It's rooted in how we see reality itself. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover next. What you're about to hear might completely change how you see yourself, and possibly your entire life. Throughout this journey, we've explored the deeper layers that shape your identity. The roles you play, the shadow you've hidden away, the archetypes quietly pulling the strings. But now it's time to look at the biggest illusion of all, the illusion of self. Most people go through life assuming they are a fixed person, a steady self that's been shaped by time, memory, and personal experience. But Jung, along with other great minds and spiritual teachers, saw something much more profound. The self isn't fixed. It's fluid, always growing, and far more expansive than we've been taught to believe. What if who you think you are right now is just a piece of something much bigger? What if your current identity is just one version of a consciousness that's been unfolding for lifetimes, carrying the wisdom of those who came before you? Jung described this deeper idea using the concept of the self, not the small, ego-driven self that clings to titles and fears, but the true self, the full, timeless expression of your being. And realizing this can be both freeing and a little unsettling, because it means that everything you've believed about yourself, all your fears, your limits, the stories you tell yourself, aren't the whole truth. They're just temporary constructs, mental scaffolding. And here's the most profound truth of all. You are not a lone, disconnected individual. You are part of something vast and interconnected, carrying generations of insight, the depth of the unconscious, and an unrealized potential that goes beyond imagination. But if that's the truth, why do we so often feel small? Why do we experience suffering, insecurity, and fear? The root cause, Jung believed, is the ego. The ego's job is to create a sense of separation, to give you a solid sense of this is me and that is not me. It builds walls, draws lines, and keeps you looping through familiar thoughts and behaviors. While the ego serves a useful purpose, it also blinds you to your deeper nature. It traps you in a limited version of yourself. But the moment you loosen your grip on that narrow identity, a whole world of possibility opens up. So, how do you move beyond the illusion of self and start living from your true essence? Jung laid out a path for that too, but it takes bravery, deep honesty, and a willingness to let go of everything you thought you were. First, you must embrace the unknown. Most people run from uncertainty, but that's where growth lives. The unknown is where transformation starts. The more you welcome it with curiosity instead of fear, the more you begin to see yourself and life in a whole new way. Second, stop clinging to labels. You're not just your name, your job, your history, or your personality type. You are something far more fluid and undefinable. When you let go of needing to fit into neat categories, you make room for your real self to come through. Third, tune in to your unconscious, your dreams, gut feelings, random flashes of insight. They aren't just noise. They're signals from the deeper parts of your mind, guiding you toward what's true for you. Pay attention to patterns, symbols, and synchronicities. They're pointing you toward alignment. And finally, surrender to the journey. Finding yourself isn't a box to check. It's not something you reach once and for all. It's a lifelong process, a continuous peeling back of layers. But here's the most beautiful realization of all. You've never truly been lost. The self you've been searching for has always been with you, quietly waiting for you to turn inward and remember. So now the decision is yours. Will you keep living as a fragment of who you really are, held back by old fears and stories that no longer serve you? Or will you take a bold step forward into the unknown, into the wholeness that's always been yours? Because life doesn't truly begin until you come home to yourself. And now, you know the way.